I would love to hear it.
Initiated.
Okay, go ahead.
Well,
Thank you, Bridge.
I think in China and Japan and many places in the Asian countries, we think a dragon is a symbol of some kind of water, such as rivers and large rivers and sometimes the sea. So yesterday we saw the very beautiful view of corals, and we usually say that kind of view as a dragon palace.
That's really cool. And since we're studying the deep sea, where these little halosaurs are sort of like our deep sea dragons, looking after the waters of the deep. And right now we're looking at a predatory sea star feeding on a bamboo coral. So right now you're seeing the stomach of this sea star wrapped around the stalk of this coral, and it's actively feeding on the polyps here.
Pulling out for a full star view.
Go ahead.
So I'm trying to see a little bit of the top, see if there's spikes, but I'm not seeing any spikes coming out. So this might be a Circeaster feeding on a bamboo coral.
Pretty narrow focus range, huh?
Very.
Okay, you can come out when you're ready. Yeah.
Some polyps on the upper left we might want to look at. Pink things.
Anything else in the image here you want to look at? Watch lead.
Let's look at the Chrysogorgic coral too.
The one above here?
Yep, that's the one.
Okay. Go ahead. And of course there's a little squat lobster in there.
Yeah, so on these Chrysogorgic corals, we often see the squat lobster hanging out in the branches. So this squat lobster is likely in the genus Europtychus. You can see that it has a very short rostrum or spine in between the eyes, and these very long arms. And they often hang out in the branches just like this with their arms spread out, waiting for food to come by.
Full coral.
Look at the
Yeah, there's something going on with that.
Still taped at all ends. I did see the pole line running along that lifted curve.
Well, that was a great observation of a sea star feeding on a bamboo coral. I'm sure we'll see that again later today as we reach an area of higher density corals.
That was the theme of yesterday.
It was the theme of yesterday, but the sea star that we were seeing was Hippasteria, and this was not that one. This is likely Circeaster. Well, I am seeing a number of different coral in this area, even though it's just a lot of small boulders and sediment.
I think we're starting to see more talus, broken rock, and boulders as we're getting toward the slope.
Co-pilot.
And we've got our first
ship's
sponge
pretty
of
much
the
stopped.
day.
RV nav bridge, move complete.
Thank you, Bridge.
So this is a Bolosomini sponge, glass sponge in the family Euplectellidae. And if we were to see this sponge from the other side, you'd see two large, like this large open osculum. It is a pretty tall sponge.
So Megan, I'm pretty sure that you could actually go to genus on this one. I don't see the two openings that are typical of that new genus in the Bolosomini subfamily. So I think this is most likely Bolosoma, possibly species 1 or species 2, but I'm not positive. So that could all be wrong, but we know it's definitely in the subfamily Bolosomini, as you said.
Yeah, I didn't want to jump to conclusions too soon without seeing it all the way around. It's hard to tell. But yeah, I'm not seeing those two sort of holes on the backside. And I'm not sure where the osculum is.
You can do it from 5 meters up. You got tilt.
I was looking at that
So
little
you can pull up
depression,
10
but when they
meters.
zoomed in a bit, then I was becoming less certain that that really was an osculum. So I think we're going to stick with Bolosoma on this one.
I think they're about to see the side they need.
Sorry, I mean Bolosomini on this one.
Okay. Yeah, it looks a bit different than some of the ones we've seen before. But it has this very large open osculum on this side. And it does have a very long stalk. Quite a large sponge.
It also has those little bumps on the surface of it, and that is characteristic of the Bolosomini new genus. So those are often yellow, so this is kind of funny it's white, but I'm not surprised. I'm sure there can be differences in color. But I don't know what those bumps represent. Obviously, holes on the side of the
So I think you gave them some good imagery
water
that you were able to narrow it down another step.
exit the tissue of the sponge. But bumps may be there perhaps to increase surface area. Not really sure.
You're piloting. I'm just sitting back enjoying the view.
Okay, coming up. Are you still moving, Andy, or should we, okay. Okay. Let's see, I think you saw a boulder out there. Let's see something on sonar to start.
Well, all of the boulders in this area seem to have a few colonies of coral on them or sponge.
It's pretty far up. Oh,
And you'll notice that in between these boulders where it's just small pebbles and sediment, there isn't any coral. And that's because these corals and sponges need a hard substrate to grow on.
Coming down a little bit, Andy.
Here we're seeing
we
another
could
type of
probably go ahead and
Chrysogorgia
get another
coral
20
and
meter
a
moving.
Ritogorgia. That's
Copy
the
that.
spiraling colony on
20
the right
meters,
side. And a
330.
different type of sponge on the left.
Tether's looking a little better, huh?
Go ahead.
Let's keep moving.
So that sponge is Pleura. It's in this weird little family that is called Uncinetaridae, at least for the moment. I'm sure nobody really cares about the origin of that family name, but uncinates are a type of spicule, and that's presumably the origin of the name of that family because it's got these particular types of spicules. There's other families that also have those, but I'm not really sure why this one got named that way. But anyway, Pleura in the family Uncinetaridae is indeed a glass sponge, and it's a hard one
Keep wanting to zoom out, and it just won't go out any further. So
That's
tall.
a big one. Yeah.
So I've noticed that a lot of these sponges have this sort of dead crusty part on it, so this brown part on one side. Is that just something that happens as these sponges get older, or do you have any idea why this part of the sponge might be dead, but the rest of the sponge seems to be doing pretty well?
I'm not really sure, but this zoom-in is really terrific. It looks to me like there's a lot of foraminifera that are growing on the surface, this surface of the sponge, and could be killing some of the tissue, and also a lot of the brown color, maybe these other organisms that are living on the sponge as well.
I don't know what they are. So what are these little creatures that are making up the brown mat?
It looks like either hydrozoans or foraminifera. That's what Chris said.
Chris, do we ever have any sponges that grow on top of other sponges?
Those look like hydroids for sure on the left-hand side, but some of the sort of fluffy stuff in the middle could be forams. So it wouldn't surprise me if there's a bunch of different things growing on it.
Okay,
come out a little bit.
So, Chris, are there sponges that grow on other sponges?
Yes, there are, and we have seen live sponges that have settled out on other live sponges. I don't quite understand why they do this. Last cruise, we had a type of Poliopogon, one of these big, massive sponges, but in this case, it wasn't that massive. It was about the size of a basketball. And everywhere that we saw this sponge, it actually had settled out and was growing on a dead sponge of a completely different species and family as well. There were none of those on the rocks. This is on a bizarre seamount ridge down in the Johnston Atoll Monument area. So, I don't know what all that was about. We've never seen that before. They weren't settling on live sponges, dead ones, but I'm going to stop so you can describe what we're looking at here.
Right now we've zoomed into the Iridogorgia coral, and we are taking a look at a small jellyfish that is feeding on this coral. So this little jelly has been known to feed on a number of corals, and we did actually collect one this cruise. It was probably the first time that this jelly has been collected, and it was feeding on a Iridogorgia coral, just like this one. So right now you're seeing its mouth actually extra like just sort of coming out of the center of this jelly and wrapped around the skeleton. And you can see its little tentacles. It has 4 tentacles. So these jellies are often called Narcomedusae or Hydromedusae.
Right, rolling. You're clear.
Megan, it's interesting that we have missing polyps where the jelly is sitting now. You see there are at least 3 polyps are missing there. Maybe they already ate them.
Oh.
Yeah, that's pretty likely.
He's still good. Just blowing in the wind.
Once you find a food in the deep sea, it's good to stick with it, I guess.
Giving him some breakfast here.
Baby beast.
Pushing ahead.
So even though substrate is sparse right now in this area on Schumann Seamount, we are seeing a number of corals growing on wherever there is suitable substrate. So these areas where there are large enough boulders, seeing high concentrations of coral. This doesn't seem like a boulder to me, John. Is this something that's more in place, just sort of an outcrop that has been covered over time?
Okay, well, I won't be going any further. And you haven't even started that second, the last move?
Hard to say why it's out here by itself. I think we saw some of these yesterday and previous.
That move was called in about 5 minutes ago.
Okay, so you're at the beginning. Great. That'll work for us.
So on this rock, we are seeing a number of different corals. Starting from the right side, there's an Iridogorgia coral, and then there's some Primnoid coral, and in the middle, we're seeing a bamboo coral. Next to that bamboo is a pink coral, like the Hemicorallium.
Do you want to zoom in a bit? Just noticing it's kind of...
ROV nav
So this bamboo coral, straight in the middle screen, is a nodally branching bamboo coral. You can see how the branches are coming off where that node is, that black little part of the skeleton that sort of breaks up the skeleton into smaller pieces, making it look like a bamboo plant.
What is that guy on the left?
And then we're seeing a family of coprellid amphipods on this hydroid that has overgrown the bamboo skeleton. These are some of my favorite amphipods. They're very strange. You can see how the head is sort of a strange sort of teardrop shape, and the back end of the body has been reduced, and it has lost a number of the appendages that amphipods normally have. So there are only just these couple of hooks on the back end.
They almost look like praying mantises on the front.
I think they feed in a very similar way. They're just sort of hanging out there waiting for something to come along, and they have those front chelipeds waiting to capture any sort of food.
It's really neat. I've never seen those before.
They're generally really small and hard to spot. In the past, I've seen them in benthic samples from core samples and dredge samples. But it's really great to see them alive, doing their thing, hanging out on this hydroid. They're really odd.
Are you clear?
I remember the first time I saw these amphipods, and I was just so confused as to what they were.
They don't look like much.
Anything else you want a close look at here?
Let's look at that sort of V-shaped colony just to the left.
Actually, what about this red thing? We'll do a quick zoom here.
Oh, yeah, let's zoom that. I think it might be a shrimp. Oh, no, it's an anemone. Oh, and a mysid shrimp. Trying to get the spotlight here.
Sure is. All right, thanks.
Note there's no live polyps above that anemone.
So these large colonies can be home for a number of different organisms. So this bamboo colony is home to this mysid shrimp, anemones, maybe it looks like possibly a benthic ctenophore, hydrozoans, coprellid amphipods, all living in the branches of this bamboo coral.
So which coral? The V-shaped one?
It's that V-shaped one that's like the third one over from the bamboo.
Sure. This one here?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, okay. You can go ahead.
So this is a type of primnoid coral in the genus Calyptrophora, and it also has a number of anemones along the skeleton. And what I'm looking at here to try to identify the species is how long these side branches are in comparison to one another.
Okay.
So there are two different species that we know of right now. We have Calyptrophora angularis and Calyptrophora pileata. And angularis tends to have the branches that are of equal length. So this is likely Calyptrophora angularis.
Okay, we come out. And we'll go over to that rock behind this one. See what's up there. Whole variety here.
This is just a small, high-density community all on this boulder. We have a number of different corals. It looks like possibly 3 different types of primnoid corals, a couple different types of chrysogorgiid corals, bamboo coral, and a number of associates like squat lobsters, anemones, hydroids, brittle stars, mysid shrimp, all contained in this little small area.
Okay. So a little ecosystem,
yeah,
isolated from other ones to some degree.
We're seeing another one of those little jellyfish feeding on the polyps of a small bamboo coral. In center screen, we're seeing another primnoid coral with these associated ophiuroids or brittle stars. They're just wrapped around the branches of this coral.
Okay, you can come out. Just trying to get in there as tight as I could.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to jot down what I'm seeing all on this rock, and it's taking up a number of lines in my notebook.
Copy, so 330.
Yeah, sure.
Coming up.
Go ahead now.
Let's make the same move again.
We could spend all day at this one rock, but there's plenty of things to see later on. I mean, if this is just the preview, the main feature is just going to be mind-boggling.
All right. Actually, this boulder is analogous to the OKEANOS Explorer. We're all piled on this one ship with no other organisms like us for hundreds of miles around, and we're looking at another community on the bottom. So who's looking at who?
I don't know. Sometimes these fish will come and look at us and check us out. So maybe as we go along, we'll see a few fish that might be curious and come up and see what's going on here with the ROV. Most of the time, we'll see these Coryphonoides rat-tail fish will come and check out the ROV. There's a theory that they might just hang around behind us, hoping we will attract some prey for them to feed on.
All right, hold on. We'll do a quick scan side to side and see what the slope looks like here.
So right now we're just checking out the slope. It looks like we might be coming upon a geologic contact. And I can see a whole bunch of corals right there.
Yeah,
are we interested in
large rock outcrop coming up?
Going over there, we'd have to saddle laterally along the slope, but we could go there if you want. Watch lead.
It's gone from flat to something like 20 to 30 degrees.
Watch lead, are you interested in going to that rock? We'll have to go kind of laterally along the slope, but we can certainly do that if you want.
Sure, let's check it out.
Okay. Yes.
Bridge, is this enough?
So, John, you can usually see
let's go ahead and stop that one,
clearly, right?
What's the angle off the Sirius sonar?
Not
there?
all the time. Sometimes it's a gradual transition, but we have been seeing a number of really sharp ones, either kind of like this sediment and talus to a solid wall or a solid chunk of lava.
Pardon the interruption. Your conference contains less than 3 participants.
Copy, Bridge, thank you.
You're welcome. If you would like
Could use the sonar as well.
So in other cases it's more gradual, but yeah, this is a pretty obvious one here.
Do you want to get close to it or right on top of it?
Just close to it. We can do...
okay, so 15 degrees? 15 meters? Or 20 meters?
We'll do 20.
Yeah,
that wasn't that bad of a joke.
We'll just do,
it was so bad I didn't even get it.
Yeah, 005.
Copy.
All right, we got a little bit of time before we can get over there, watch lead, so I'm going to come back. We're on our way.
Okay.
We'll look at some other stuff here.
There's plenty to see around here, so...
let's actually get moving in another direction, so it's going to be range.
So this coral coming into view seems to have a number of associates.
Speed decimal 2.
That's 20 meters, being 005, speed decimal 2.
Good, copy.
So this again looks like a bamboo coral. And I'm seeing a crinoid perched on top.
RV9 bridge, move up 20 meters, bearing 005, speed decimal 2 initiated.
Thank you.
Maybe an anemone in the branches.
Okay. Let's zoom in a little bit. Go for the anemone.
So I'm seeing a nodally branching bamboo here, and we have an anemone wrapped around the branch of this coral as well.
Okay, come out a little bit.
Go ahead, Nav.
Lasers are clear.
Yeah, you can turn them off.
Some ctenophores on the background as well.
So Megan, this anemone might be in the family Amphianthidae.
So we were originally going to reach the top, but we moved our track over to get to a better slope. So if we don't make it to the very, very top, that's okay. The main goal was to transect as much as that ridgeline as possible. No problem. So now we're seeing a crinoid, this purple crinoid.
Let's come out a little bit, Roland. I got to push up and sit down again.
We can identify this crinoid based on its color and the long filaments at the ends of the arms. So this looks like Sathermetra in the family Xenometridae,
okay, thanks.
a type of crinoid.
go in.
I just love the purple color and the ombre fading into white at the ends of the arms. And there you go. So you can see the different pinnules or those little side branches on the arms. And these crinoids can actually swim by undulating their arms.
I hear they can dance.
They can dance. Do the crinoid dance.
Nice. Okay, you can come out. Sirius will be moving in just another minute or two. We'll be making our way over to that large boulder with all the coral.
You can see how loose this sediment is here. Just sort of made a nice big plume of sediment as we moved away from that boulder with the coral on it.
Come up a little bit, Roland. I know my camera's a little high.
Yep. You want a partial?
So now we're seeing a dense community. It looks mostly of bamboo coral. I'm also seeing some Iridogorgia, that spiraling coral, maybe some Pleurogorgia.
Great view on Sirius. See how large this is.
That is huge.
All right, Roland, you can go partial if you want. Let's come out.
And I bet the number of these corals have a number of associates in their branches.
I know it's going to be hard to choose, but is there any specifically you want to take a look at here?
Oh, I don't know. I don't see, they all look very similar, so whichever one's easiest to zoom in on.
RV9 bridge move complete.
Thank you, Bridge.
So these bamboos look to be nodally branching. We're seeing a number of Iridogorgia corals, the spiraling coral. Looks like there might be a black coral, that yellow colony, on the right side of the lasers, underneath the branches of that bamboo coral.
Are lasers on right now?
Not yet. Let's leave them off. I'm just doing a nice scenic
Possibly
pan.
a Chrysogorgia geniculata, that tall or bottle brush shaped colony. And then there's a smaller Chrysogorgia just in front of it, of a different species. I think right underneath us we have a number of black coral.
Can you turn them on?
And a tall Bolosomini sponge. This tall yellow colony looks to be like a Bathypathes. Seeing a Primnoid coral, some more bamboo coral, Chrysogorgia coral, and a Walteria sponge. There's so much to see.
You want to see what these little white things are on below the lasers?
Little white things?
Yep. Bottom right. Maybe snails.
Do a quick zoom.
I don't know what they were.
Get a nice zoom of the rock for you, John.
Any idea what these are? I guess just...
those look like broken bases of coral.
Yeah, let's come out, Roland. Video thought they might be snails.
Yeah, it looks like this has been in place for quite some time, and the community here has likely grown up, and some corals have died off and fallen away, and other corals have replaced them. And so you'll see a number of these white spots on the rock, and those are likely old bases of coral colonies. Can we zoom on that short yellow colony?
Sure.
Right above the lasers?
Sure. I'll get as close as I can without disrupting any of these other colonies. Alright, let's go ahead, video. Okay, that'll put us right on top. That'll be good.
So that is a black coral. Looks like stauropathes.
Come out.
And in the branches of these bamboo corals, I'm seeing another one of those little jellyfish, along with some anemones. And in the branches of the chrysogorgid corals, some squat lobsters. So this is a great example of how deep sea coral communities are great homes for other invertebrates.
How are we looking, co-pilot? Everything good?
They play an important function in providing habitat to a number of different animals, including fishes. So while you don't see any fish right now on screen, fishes will use these areas for foraging and in some cases for protection and habitat. So I think we're seeing a number of different anemones on this coral.
That one just closed up on the bottom.
Just seeing the backside.
And a little amphipod swimming along. So this is like the more typical form of an amphipod.
Bunch of additional anemones.
I just swam through the screen.
A red ctenophore also.
Unlike the caprellid amphipods that we saw earlier.
Oh, what's that? Urchins?
Oh, and some crazy urchins. I still haven't heard back from urchin experts of what type of urchin this is. They're quite unusual to me in that they have these long spines as sort of a skirt around the bottom of the urchin. And on top, the spines are relatively short. And those little sort of tentacle-like projections that you're seeing along this urchin are its tube feet, or what the urchin uses to walk along the bottom. I wonder what these two are doing.
How big are these? Do you have the lasers by any chance?
To get the lasers.
They're pretty small, 4 inches or less. Oh, a couple inches.
Maybe an inch across.
And then spines maybe 2.5 or something.
it doesn't look like it's possible to grab one, right? Because it's all intermixed between corals, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think that those...
They're right in the middle of all these corals.
No, we'd pretty much wipe that out.
Yeah, we would have to take out this entire area and then probably take a while to try to scoop them off. And urchins can often suck themselves close to the substrate and hold on pretty heartily. So
we'll look for some more of those.
Looks like
maybe if a couple are on a nice loose rock or something.
We haven't seen too many of those.
Yeah, not too many. And it was great that those two were right next to each other, but looked like one was reaching out with the tube feet toward the other.
Yeah.
So maybe they're up to something.
Let's come out. You're all settled out, Randy, right?
Megan, there is another one, I guess. Oh, no, it's Chrysogorgia. I just wanted it to be sea urchin.
Want to take a snap of the widest one left of lasers? I don't know if we've seen that one yet today.
Any interest in the white coral in the center watch lead?
Yeah, let's zoom this one.
Okay, we'll do a quick
So
zoom.
this looks like Pleurogorgia.
Go ahead, Roland, quick zoom.
It's a type of Chrysogorgic coral where all the side branching are lined up in a line along the branches. And I can usually spot this one since it usually has this almost bluish white tinge to it. Makes it stand out against the other coral.
Okay,
can we get a colony shot? And that yellow spot in the center is likely overgrown with hydroids. But this is a pretty decently sized colony. So those lasers that you see in view are 10 centimeters or 4 inches apart. Okay. And we use those lasers to be able to estimate the size of the colonies that we're seeing and the animals that we're seeing in view. So a really dense and diverse community right here of bamboo corals, Chrysogorgic corals, primnoid corals, black coral, and a couple sponges, along with associated organisms like squat lobsters, anemones, amphipods, shrimps, and even some small jellyfish. Well, if you are an animal that likes to feed on corals, this is definitely a smorgasbord right here. I'm surprised we're not seeing more large cookie stars, like goniastrid stars that like to feed on coral. I think we're seeing our first Anthomastus underneath this boulder here. Can we zoom that, Pilot?
Sure. We'll move right over. It's a little dark under there, but okay, go ahead, video. She's kind of tucked under there, isn't he?
So this Anthomastus, or mushroom coral, has a very long sort of body stalk, and all the polyps are located at the top of this coral. Tina, is this Anthomastus tahinotis?
Okay, let's come out. How are we doing on our pace nav?
Excuse me, Megan, is that one of those urchins on the side of this boulder here, right above the lasers? Or is that just
right
a
now
dead
we
stump?
lost a few.
That's a stump.
Hundreds. of a knot. So right now our
We're
pace is
okay.
going to be
We
0.05.
are definitely looking for that urchin, I'll tell you. We're going to see a lot of stumps today that we're calling urchins, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking at all these sort of cobbles and things. I'm like, oh, please be something on there that we can pick up.
All right, turning back to it. You can go ahead and do 20. 330.
330, 20 meters coming up.
Yep.
Go ahead now.
So we're seeing another Calyptrophora from Noad coral on the left side of the screen.
That's 20 meters, bearing 330, speed decimal 2.
Good copy.
It's the camera, yeah. Yeah, we've seen that quite a bit this cruise.
ROV nav, bridge move of 20 meters, bearing 330, speed decimal 2 initiated.
Could be. Yep.
And here we're going back into this sort of rubbly field. But almost every single large rock I see has some coral on it. So center screen, another Pleurogorgia. Behind it, a Primnoid coral. Some bamboo coral and Iridogorgia, that spiraling colony.
Is that a vase sponge behind that coral near lasers?
Some kind of sponge.
Right next to the coral itself.
Appears to be a small
Do a
sponge
partial.
on a rock. Possibly Poliopogon.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's a little hard to say, given it's hidden behind there.
And there's
I think that's
Joe's about to
correct.
bump rolling.
I thought I saw sort of a vase shape to it, but it doesn't look like it now. So Poliopogon.
There was a brittle star hanging out on that sponge as well. Could we also zoom in on one of these whip corals?
Sure. How about this one?
That one looks great. So these whip corals could be one of two things. Either they are a type of Primnoid coral or a type of bamboo coral. And the only way to tell is to look at the polyps of this coral.
Seep into the left of it.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is a Primnoid coral. Looks like Candidella gigantea, which has a number of body scales along the body of this, the polyps of this coral. And these polyps are relatively large. So that's Candidella gigantea, Primnoid coral.
A long
And they are one of the unbranched primnoids. It's good to know that this coral is here. There's also a brown colony to the left. Can we look at that? That looks a little bit different. So I believe this is a black coral, so get ready, Tina.
Move initiated at 2044, almost 4 minutes ago.
It's another Geteropatus Megan. Very nice zoom. Thank you.
All right, then come out.
So far we've seen 3 different types of black coral: heteropathes, bathopathes, and stauropathes.
I think we're on the right pathies.
I think so too, John. Just follow the coral.
Is this different up here, Ron?
That joke was pretty pathetic.
No, I think it is. It's got that Y branch.
Let's look at this one. I think we've got another pathies here.
We didn't rehearse that one either.
But is this the path to the pathies?
Oh, I don't know.
Go ahead, Roland.
It's definitely a black coral. And it looks like the letter Y.
That stock is very, very black. Look at that.
So that
Cool.
the bottom of the stalk is very typical of black coral. You can see why it's called black coral. It's very dark in color and very black. Tina, any ID for this coral?
RVNF Bridge, move complete.
Thank you, Bridge.
Honestly, I think the
Co-pilot,
same
we
species
just stopped moving.
just have seen a few minutes ago. There is another black coral under that, and this one, what is the depth here?
We are currently at 2,280.
This may be good. Okay, and it is, I guess it's still Geteropatus, but it's very hard to tell apart Geteropatus and Thrysopatus. For the moment, we are using branches, you see little big branches. So I would still left it like Thrysopatus, Geteropatus for the moment. We just don't have real border between these two genera.
Yeah,
The more we see, the less we understand.
Yeah, this one was confusing for me. I was like, oh, I don't know. Because I saw some of those shorter branches that are heteropathes-like, but it kind of almost looks like a Thrysopates. It's trying to trick us. There was another black coral on this rock, Pilot, that was different than the one that we were looking at.
Which one?
It was right underneath that right side branch.
Okay. Right underneath the right side branch.
Yeah, there's a black coral.
All right.
It's right now at the right edge of that right branch.
Yeah, it's like the end of the branch. I don't know if we can see it. I see it sort of sticking out behind there. I think you might have to zoom in a little bit further.
All right. Well, I'm going to just hold it here, and Andy's going to get you this shot.
Okay. So we are going through a pilot change.
Okay.
So to get that one, you'll have to sort of come around to the right side.
Where is it underneath it? I don't know.
Right
So
where
the
laser,
end
right
of
laser
the right
beam is
side
itself.
branch of this coral that's in view, there is a smaller black coral
Okay.
behind it.
Slightly around it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me come back.
I think you've got it in view now.
Okay.
It sort of blends in with the rocks, so to
Sure
see it,
does.
we'll have to zoom in.
Let me zoom. Show it to you.
Okay, go ahead.
Right hand
Ah, there
side.
it is. Right, yeah, right to the right side. That main coral, that sort of smaller colony. That's the one.
Okay. All right, come on in video. I'm going to center it up.
I think you need to rotate around to the right.
You want to come more to the right?
Yeah, because
So this little black
is
coral is different than the one that is sort of taking up most of the screen.
How's
that?
The Starapat, as you can see, two little pinners a little bit up of the colony. Yeah, but it's little. Maybe it was a little bit damaged or whatever.
The ship is not moving.
The pinners are quite short, and yes, it just begin to get pinners of the next order.
Yeah, it does look like it's a little scraggly, doesn't it? Thank you, pilot. That's what we needed.
Okay. I believe it's starting to come to an end, right? Is that right, Nav? We ended about 4 or 5 minutes ago.
It should have ended about, maybe 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
So we are slowly going to make our way up slope, hopefully find some geologic contacts. So a change in the bottom, but right now we have this sort of mixed bag of sediment, cobbles, and pebbles, with a few larger boulders, and we're seeing a number of coral colonies on those larger boulders, and some sponges as well.
You're still moving? You're still swinging? Okay.
So that might be maybe the first hemicorallium, Megan, I think, or did you see one previously?
Yeah, we saw one, but it was smaller.
Okay, I forgot about it. All right, thank you.
But let's zoom in here. I'm curious about these sort of reddish orange animals.
Should have ended about maybe at 50, so a while ago.
Come on in video.
Yep.
Those are the wrinkliest Anthomastus I've seen.
Tilt up, look at the other one.
See the other one? Okay.
It looks like there might be.
I would put Anthomastus, but I don't have it collected again. But this one is not very good position.
Yes.
Yeah, it looks a little scraggly as well. Might be a difficult life down here in the boulder sediment field.
Maybe a sea spider came along and left.
Perhaps. That was a great zoom. I think we're good here.
Okay. I'm ready. I'll go.
30 meters, 330.
Go ahead, Nat.
We're ready for our next move.
Okay.
It's gonna be range 30 meters, bearing 330 degrees, speed 0.2 of a knot.
30 meters, bearing 330, speed decimal 2.
Copy.
So we're seeing some hemicorallium or pink coral. But this area isn't the best place to be a coral. A lot of these cobbles and boulders are quite small, and if they were to start moving, that would be the end of that. You're the coral.
The black one on the upper right.
Also, if you're a coral and you grow too large, you could topple over in a strong current. If you're on a small boulder or a small cobble.
I didn't hear your video.
Set.
I didn't hear you if you were talking about
it. Said right of lasers on that rock. That coral may be a sea pin.
If you want to do a quick zoom, find out.
You called in to move it 58, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay.
So this is another black coral, and you can see an amphipod just sort of hanging out around this coral.
Sounds like we've seen it before.
Yep, come on up.
Is that a squat lobster back there, or just?
I'm seeing a toppled sponge. It looks a lot like the sponge that we saw yesterday with a number of associates, sort of like that wizard hat sponge.
So you can get it right between your skids and get a real good look at its rostrum.
I'm waiting to get a little bit better look at this one. Kind of a funny looking sponge.
Sounds very interesting, the sponge.
Okay.
You can tell that this is a dead sponge because of the color. A live sponge would be brighter white, but this one has toppled over. As you can see, the little boulder that it was on fell over, and the sponge did not do well.
It's a pretty big rock, actually.
It is. But you can see the framework.
This is the sponge that you collected and we saw yesterday, and it's just a dead, that sort of elongate vase. That's some type of a hard sponge, and that clearly shows the skeleton right there, so a really nice zoom. Don't really know what sponge this is, except for it's one of the members of the group that forms hard skeletons, or that are technically called dictyonal frameworks that support these sponges and enable them to get to be quite tall like this.
Full screen.
I guess that's it. It's the unknown glass sponge hexactinellid, at least for the moment, until we can examine the specimen you collected.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Almost every time we dive, we see something new and unexpected. So we have collected that sponge, and hopefully we will know more once we get some sponge experts to take a look at the spicules or the skeletal pieces of this sponge.
I should be underway pretty soon. Actually, I think I'm moving now.
So now we're coming in on a squat lobster, a nice white squat lobster. You can see it in the lasers that this squat lobster is probably about 3 inches big. This little squat lobster is in the genus Munidopsis. Has a very long, upward curved rostrum, or that spine in between the eyes. Also has a number of spines all around its body. If you're a crab, it's good to be spiny. It'll be harder to eat. Look, it's waving at you.
Whenever you're clear, video.
Just trying to figure out what that
It kind of
big
looks like
white
sock
thing is
puppets.
next
Those
to
little antennal filaments at the end there. It's like
yeah,
an old sock puppet show. I'm sure that's not what it's doing.
Maybe that's how they attract a mate. Put on a little show. You never know.
You never know.
I like the way the two of you think.
So we're seeing another Candidilla gigantea, that whip in center screen. And to the left of the screen is Pleurogorgia militaris.
You already have zooms of these watches, so you don't need anything?
I'm like waiting in suspense. I can't wait to see the different geology. Sort of tired of this field of rubble here.
The ship just stopped moving.
Okay.
Better geology means better biology, John.
It usually does.
And we also would like to collect a couple rocks here. Why do we want rocks?
Well, the rocks actually tell us something about the seamount, whereas the corals don't particularly tell us about the seamount. The rocks can tell us about the makeup of the magma and you know, where the geochemistry of the type element content, how they fit in with the, say, the Hawaiian hotspot to the south, or mid-ocean ridge systems in other places of the ocean.
So that branch looks separate.
And you can tell if there's kind of a mix between the two.
Go ahead.
And we can also use the rocks to get an absolute age on the seamount, on the lavas. And that all helps fit into the story of the musician seamounts.
Cruise out there a distance before it starts putting that middle stuff in
Greater
there.
Pacific Basin as well.
So how old are the musician seamounts?
They've been dated with previous studies quite some time ago, several decades ago, where they did dredging of rocks from not every one of the seamounts. There's about 25 different seamounts and volcanic ridges in the musicians seamount group. So the dating was anywhere from 65 million years in the southern musicians to 95 million years old in the old northern musicians, and follows pretty well a straight line trend, older as you go to the northwest, which indicates that a hot spot was present as the plate moved to the northwest. Most likely a stable, stationary hotspot plume was burning a hole through the plate and creating seamounts as it went, much like the Hawaiian hotspot trace, which is active today. The musicians are active no more, so they are the Cretaceous
70 degrees.
age,
I only have maybe a minute or two left of
the last period of the dinosaurs on Earth for reference.
Video whenever you're clear.
Clear.
So we're looking at a glass sponge called Walteria, and it's kind of a funny one. So it's a little bit different in that the osculum on top is quite large, and then where it attaches was also a little bit unusual. But I don't know if it's just a morphological variant. Say, for example, for this one here, it's quite possible it's that. But that gives me another thing to keep my eye out for, not just the urchins, but possibly weird Walterias. But thank you for that close-up.
Chris, I was thinking then that Walteria maybe just lost its top at some point, and it just hasn't regrown yet, or, you know, it looks like it'd been cut off. Would that be possible?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but when he was zooming in on it, I couldn't see anything that was obviously a damage to the top. It looked fine, actually. So that's what I was getting a bit confused. But anyway, I'll be looking to see if there's more like that. And it's, you know, right now I'm just assuming it did lose the top, like you said. But it would be kind of interesting if we saw some more that looked the same.
So we have another predatory sea star on a bamboo coral. This looks like an Actinomyces bamboo coral, which is an internodally branching bamboo.
Up and down 80, but I think I'm pretty much settled out.
Copy that.
So these sea stars are the family Goniasteridae, and that one could be a Circeaster. Of course, we also had another type of bamboo coral on that rock as well, a nodally branching one.
And Watchley, if you want to try any of these rocks, I can certainly test.
No, thank you.
Okay. That was decisive.
Yeah, we probably want a rock that's closer to a bedrock area that's in place.
All right.
Let's check out this pink and yellow coral going on here in front. So we actually have two different corals here. We have the pink coral, and then we have this yellow coral that's overgrown it. And then on top, we're seeing a snake star in the family Astroschematidae.
Come on in video.
So I'm waiting to see if this is a Hemicorallium, a pink coral, or a Pleurogorgia, a bubblegum coral. So it looks like Hemicorallium to me. And then we have this yellow coral, which is a parazoanthid that has overgrown the skeleton of this pink coral. It's taking over that skeleton for itself.
Yeah, Megan, this is one of those that's kind of confusing whether it's Hemicorallium or Paragorgia. I'm sort of leaning more toward Paragorgia just because of the large number of these zoanthids, which we see a little bit more often on Paragorgia than on Corallium. But you're seeing some ends of the branches that show 3 polyps, and I don't know. Just like you, I guess, we kind of just have a feel for what we think it might be and not really sure.
Let's go full screen.
Yeah, Chris, it's really hard to tell between some of the more delicate Paragorgia and the Hemicorallium. They're the same color, they have a very similar branching pattern.
Tilt down.
Want to kill lasers?
Yeah, we ought to get Santiago to watch these dives. Santiago Herrera is specialist in this group of corals, so maybe we can send him some pictures afterwards.
Clear.
Come on out video. Just over to my port here.
There's a long sponge stalk. It looked like there was a star on it on the right side of the screen. Is that sponge alive? Does it have a top?
There we go.
Oh, nope. No top on that sponge. Just a star.
It's been topped by a star.
So it looks like we're getting into a different area here. The boulders seem to be a bit larger. It's a good sign as we're heading up slope.
Side-to-side view.
We'll likely find some more consolidated bottom.
So white holothurian, just a note.
Yeah, it's slowly changing.
Sometimes we see really abrupt changes. Sometimes there's just sort of a gradient of change as we move upwards. Just goes to show that every seamount is different and every dive is different.
That's what we're looking at right now.
Mayo, would you be able to do a quick zoom on that holothuroidean down there to the right of the boulder in the center?
So, pilot, there is a sea cucumber, center screen just to the left of the lasers.
I think I see a fish right. It's very small.
Yeah, let's do the fish real quick because we'll do that sea cucumber here. Just a second. Watch these.
Oh, and we have a fish. This is a rat tail fish, or grenadier, in the family Macoridae. And this is in the genus Kumba. So Kumba is one of the...
Can you tell you really like the name of that fish?
Yeah, I really like the name of that fish. So you can ID a Kumba based on its sort of smaller size, and it does not have scales on the nose.
Good
so it has more of a jelly nose.
Come on in, video.
Now we can just prep a 30-meter move at 330.
Likely in the family Synallactidae.
Call it in once he's done with this.
Has this
30-meter move
sort of
at
skirt
330.
around the outside the animal, and
Full
some
screen.
fleshy projections along the top. These sea cucumbers can come in a number of colors. They could be white like this, sort of translucent white, pink, and also purple.
Feeding appendages are on the right working. Tilt down the center.
And we're zooming in on the head of the sea cucumber. You can see its little feeding appendages on the rock.
Video's clear.
I think that's good, pilot.
Okay, come
Okay.
on.
Go ahead and call it. That's okay with you, pilot?
Yes, I'm going to push ahead.
All right.
Currently at 56.
Go ahead now.
So we are going to keep moving along and see what there is to see. As we move upslope, I think we're noticing an increase in the number of corals that we're seeing. Quite a few bamboo coral, some unbranched primnoids, Candidella gigantea, some black coral. There's a Bathypathes in view. Some Pleurogorgia, sort of almost bluish white colony.
Thank you, Bridge.
It's got a lot of...
And that looks like
creatures.
Calyptrophora with all of those brittle stars around it. Those are those orange animals on the branches of that coral, and other primnoid corals as well. Anthomastus, mushroom coral.
Got a geology question. All this crumbly stuff that we're looking at for the rocks, is any of that affected by how fast the lava cools when it comes out?
Don't know.
Well, I think at this point, this area is so old that we're not really seeing the lava anymore. Is that true, John?
Yeah, I think anything friable like quenched glass would be long gone by now. But the manganese does make it look kind of similar type of look as quenched lava glass from eruption onto the seafloor or into the ocean from the land. It has that shiny kind of delicate appearance, but this stuff is fairly tough, but it is brittle.
Critter.
So check out this huge bamboo coral fan that we're seeing perched on top of this large boulder in front of us.
Lasers are on now.
So the lasers in view are 10 centimeters or 4 inches apart. Looks like this coral is over a meter tall. And I'd love to get a nice zoom of the branching points to see if this is a nodal brancher or an internodal brancher.
Okay. Come on, video.
So it looks like it's branching at the internode, so in between the proteinaceous pieces that make this bamboo coral look like bamboo. So bamboos have sort of a alternating pattern of these long white bones and these sort of nodes made out of protein that allows the skeleton of this bamboo coral to articulate just a bit when faced with heavy current. The polyps seem relatively translucent.
You want to go down to the base too?
Yes.
Okay.
And near the base you can see where the tissue is actually receded and the skeleton is just the plain stark white is exposed. And the base of this coral is quite wide and quite secure to this rock. When you become a large fan like this, your base is very important to hold you down to the rock and make sure that you don't topple over. But the taller you are as a coral, the more food you can grab.
Oh.
Go ahead, Matt.
So that's probably our prop wash, and you can see how flexible the skeleton is.
We're just about done now.
Just sort of bent over, and that's what's so great about those the nodes and internode part of the skeleton. Without those nodes, that skeleton wouldn't be able to move in that manner. It would be very fragile.
So no nodes aren't good nodes, huh?
Mm-hmm. Sort of like the hemicorallia and the pink corals we saw. If you accidentally bump one of those, they just sort of break apart into a lot of pieces.
All right, Chris and the gang, Megan's gone off to for lunch. If you have some biology you'd like to zoom in on, comment on, collect, whatever, let me know in the verbal teleconference or on the chat line.
What's going on in that candelabra thing?
Okay, now it's time to take advantage of the geologists. I'm up for it.
Hey, I've been out here a couple of weeks now. I'm on to you guys.
Yeah, I know you are, and you're learning a bunch of the biology too, so you become a dangerous person.
Yeah, I've seen that. We don't need that.
That range was 30.
Been there.
Okay, copy.
Got the T-shirt, as they say out here.
Thank you.
Oh, well, we have some marine debris stuck in this, I guess this is a primnoid. We've seen little bits like this before. Sometimes the consensus was they were nets, fishing nets, of some trawl nets, pieces of them that had drifted here from outside
So,
somewhere
pilot,
else.
have you moved at all?
A lot of
the
times
last
they're little
5
pieces
minutes?
like this.
Yeah, I have. He's just been also pushing up slope.
Been pushing.
Yeah, so John, a lot of these polyps on this colony were closed. Not really sure why. Yeah, but I doubt it's just this piece of marine debris that's causing it. But it could be because the coral may be recognizing that marine debris as a potential predator, so it's closed up its polyps to protect itself. So that would be kind of a weird effect of marine debris on some of these colonies. But as a result of them being closed up, then we can get a better identification on that coral, and it's going to be primnoid, as you said, but most likely an arella too, because the polyps are all curled downward when they were closed, and it looks like they
It really
have the
seems
right
weird
length
because,
and
like, if
number
you
of
guys
body
look at
scales
high
on
pack,
it. So
the
good
boat
view, thank
didn't
you.
really move that much. I mean, it seems like it moved only 5 meters between that. So it's, and this is the one before. This is the one after.
Oh, so it didn't do the whole move.
You're now looking
Well,
at
they said that it did move 30
We've seen
meters,
a bunch
so
of these
I'll just
today.
keep an
It's
eye on it
actually
to see what's going on.
hemicorallium. Sorry, we're all so used to calling everything corallium
Oh,
he
because
just did.
there
Yeah.
used to be pretty
Yeah,
much
so
just
I'll
that
just keep
main
an eye on it.
genus
The currents
in that
are
family
coming
Corallidae
straight
until a few
from
years
behind us,
ago. A
and the
bunch
wind
of
is
people,
right on our
including
bow, so
Amy
currents is only
Taylor
0.3, so I don't
and
think they're having any trouble up there.
shucks, I've forgotten who else started working
I'll just
on
call
this
another
group.
one, 30
And
meters,
now I think
330.
they're going to split them out to 3 different main genera. But there's also a brittle star, a very common associate with a lot of corals and corallium too. And so a very nice shot, thank you.
Yeah, it's a good shot. There was a bluish coral. Was that of interest? I know we've seen some of those down at the base of this boulder to the left. Bluish purple.
I didn't see that, so yeah, it'd definitely be of interest.
It's right on your left screen coming in on this rock. We pan to the left.
Left of lasers right now?
Yeah, left.
Okay. Oh, on the other rock. Over here?
Ah,
Yeah,
there's a fish too.
That's swimming up above. I wonder if you can. It's hard to get them both. I see the blue coral though.
Where's the fish?
I think the fish will hang out there a while.
Oh, there he is. We can do both. I'll get the fish and then I can go.
Are you talking about this one that's kind of the...
Yeah, it was in the base. Well, then, yeah, there's like 2 fish, so here's a bigger fish closer in.
Oh, I didn't see another fish.
Okay, so this is in the family Ophidiidae, or the cusceals. I'm pretty sure. Sometimes we confuse them with these live bearers in a very closely related family. But it's got a fairly large eye, which helps, and it's also got a split pelvic filament. As you can see, those 2 little, they look like broken wires hanging down from the bottom of the head. It's possible that this is in the genus Basozetus, and it's in the family Ophidiidae. That's what I think is a good guess on that one.
All right. Do you want to look at this bluish coral here in the foreground?
No, that's. Oh, you should know this one, John. This is Pleurogorgia.
Sorry.
It's common.
Of course.
Yeah, you
all right.
Snap zoom, but I think we got this before as well. It has sort of a gray blue tone to it. It's a very distinctive coral. It also has a very lyrate arrangement. We believe this coral is Pleurogorgia militaris. It's in the family Chrysogorgidae, and we were speculating that the name militaris came from the very uniform
There's another fish under that sponge straight ahead.
on the branches that look like sort of soldiers marching in line.
I don't see it anymore.
I don't know whether that's true or not, but it would sure make sense if that's why it was named for it.
Yeah, I remember that, the name of that one. No, I just didn't remember it being
We wouldn't get too
blue.
much further ahead.
Copy that.
All right, I think we can move on, pilots.
Should be, Sirius should be moving momentarily, though. In a minute or two.
John, is this a rock coming up on the center left, or is that a dead sponge or something? It's kind of weird looking right there with all those stringy things.
Yeah, I think I see what you're talking about to the left of that coral. I don't know. I would guess it's some collection of dead sponge pieces. But no, it's a rock. Well, I think it looks like something that used to be living. So that looks like some kind of sponge thing?
Yeah, that shows the action. Yeah, it's a sponge, all right. I think you can see all the little oscula on the side of it. So it used to be a hard sponge, but it's manganese coated, so it's been there for quite a while, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for that, just solving what that was.
Probably pretty big in its day, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're only seeing a small piece of it. So, yeah, I bet it was quite big in its heyday.
We have a fish here, so 2 fish.
Are they red fish, blue fish?
Gray fish.
Everything's kind of blue down here.
You should probably be swinging by now, co-pilot.
Yeah, I'm definitely moving.
So there was another fish down
there? Yeah, there was another one to the right of that rock. I don't know.
I see him right there.
Yeah, he's right in that shadow. Yeah, you're coming in. I bet it's the same kind, but...
Yeah, I think these are all ophidiids, but I'm not positive. I think this is something in the genus Basidgigas. That would be my best guess. But maybe not, because I'm now seeing the lateral line on this thing. This could be something else. I got to look at my notes. I think this could possibly be spectrunculus in the Basidid group. But I guess we'll have to wait until Bruce gets a chance to see the image.
I think that's what I asked. She said it was 30, so I don't know.
Video switching out.
Yeah, but I mean, maybe.
There's another fish, which is probably the same one we chased out of his little hole.
Quick zoom video.
Up to the right. But
up to the right? Oh, come back?
Up, farther up to the right, northeast, 2 o'clock.
There he is. Oh, yeah, that's got to be the same one.
Yeah,
Do you want to zoom or?
No, okay. I think he's the same one we pushed out of his place. All right, well, it looks like we're getting into some bigger pieces of outcrop. That's quite a slab there.
ROV nav bridge, move complete.
Thank you, Bridge. Copilot, that move ended at 21:33.
Okay.
Don't see anything loose at the base of it as far as the rock
I
collection
think the
goes.
delay is more like 3 minutes than 4.
We got different fish, I think.
John, there's a very
okay.
unusual fish to the upper right.
Yeah.
About to go off. I wonder if we could get.
Yeah, I'm just seeing it now. So it's one of our
just watch your
little
swing arm on
Chonics
the
buddies
port side.
we saw swimming the other day.
I'm going to go up. Oh, it's still nice.
Yeah, that's it. Boy, you are getting good with these animals, aren't you, John? I
Keep me
agree.
aware of
Or Chonacops would be. It's a Chonacid, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's the other one.
They normally don't swim that much. They usually sit on the bottom. So.
Oh, and he's got a floater going by him.
Yeah, this type of fish is considered to be an ambush predator. They have a lure. He's got his lure sort of down right now. You can't see it. It's in that little white pocket right between his eyes.
More of a balloon right now.
Hungry. He'll sit on the bottom and he'll dangle that lure out in front, trying to attract somebody close to his mouth. And when he succeeds at that, then he gulps up that poor shrimp or fish or whatever it was that was attracted to the lure. And that's the end of that. I can't remember whether these lures are bioluminescent or something, but it's quite possible they are to make them even more attractive. But anyway, a beautiful view of one of these things swimming.
He's put his hands out.
It's coming down for landing.
There he goes.
Nice flying, Andy.
Okay, come on,
All right.
video. Let's reset here. Those mid-water transects really helped.
Paid off?
Yep.
Yeah.